Today, on Inside Craft Show, we're talking about the aesthetic of the
All I shoot is Vlog 60, dum-dum.
Yeah, but that could be kind of funky. That's pretty difficult to do. I mean, we've all talked about it. Vlog is appropriate in some...
All I'm looking for is that clean image.
Here's our take on the aesthetics of the GH5.
What's aesthetic mean?
Goldberg. So one of the things that I see, we've had it in the live shows, we've had conversations about it, is talking about like the various frame rates and shooting and all that stuff. To preface all of this, I am a 24p guy. I like the look of 24. It's a personal preference. There's something about 60p that I think looks really sharp, looks very beautiful. I think it's a great, beautiful aesthetic, but it doesn't add anything to the aesthetic value of the stories that I try and tell. For whatever reason, I'm just drawn to well, I know what reason. When I was a kid, I watched Doctor Who, right? The original Doctor Who. I'm talking about Tom Baker and his fancy scarf. And those were shot PAL, so I guess they were probably shot 50. And so looking at those, or maybe it was 25 and it just looked weird. Either way, it always had this soap opera sort of look to it. It had this live broadcast vibe to it, a news look. And for whatever reason, it took me out of the show. I don't know why. I guess it's because I liked film and I wanted to emulate film, but that sort of look took me out of the show. That said, when I'm watching football, if they switch the games over to 24p, it suddenly doesn't feel like a sporting event anymore to me. So there's an aesthetic choice happening. So what is aesthetics? Well, that's pretty easy. Let's start with that. So aesthetics are a concept of philosophy that deals with beauty or finding value in a certain level of beauty. And we often throw aesthetics around as a common term, worried about the aesthetic value of a lens or a camera or the properties of it. But in reality, it's subjective because it is philosophical. That is to say that I might prefer something that you don't prefer. I might like 24p, you might be more into really clean 60p. Got it. We're both right. Right? So one of the other things is we've learned is even aesthetic value between me and Jeff. So Jeff actually has a green bias. That means when Jeff looks at images, we've figured out, having worked together now for like close to 10 years in the coloring department, Jeff actually grades a little more towards the green side. I have a magenta bias, so I grade, or what is aesthetically pleasing to me ends up going more towards magenta. Vice versa, we're both more sensitive to those colors. So Jeff responds to green better and quicker than I respond to green. I respond and notice magenta more so than Jeff sees it because, again, his bias is leaning towards green, so green is the opposite of magenta, it pulls it out. What we try and do is make that perfect merge and tie those together. And that's what we're after as filmmakers, as cinematographers, as DPs, directors, whatever you might be. That's what we're trying to get is aesthetic beauty that appeals to a multitude of people. So let's talk about this. Let's jump through some settings on this because what I'm going to do here is jump in and jump the source. So I've just shifted the source. Yeah, we're at 30p. So I've just jumped the source here, and you might see a aesthetic shift. I can see it in the movement, the way it's handling detail. I personally can see the separation. And this is only going, quote, 5 frames, but in reality, we're talking about a whole different process. But aesthetically, forget the technical. We're only talking about aesthetics. That is the philosophy of what is pretty and what is ugly. And I am in that mix, right? I am part of the aesthetic value. Your subject is always part of your aesthetic value. So now we're shooting at 30p and there's a different variation in frame rate. So what happens if we jump over something like 60? So now I am 60. I'm displaying at 60. You can see the image got darker, so that's a consideration. Again, affecting the aesthetic value. We need more light to expose for this level of it than anything else. We could break out our meter and figure that out very quickly, which the meter segment is coming, but we could break it out very quickly. So again, we're just looking at aesthetic value, just the jump between these three. Which one of these you like better is up to you. That's the aesthetic choice. The point of it is the GH5 is offering you those variations, as all cameras will offer those variations. The greatest thing about using this GH5, I got to get back to 24. The greatest thing about using the GH5 is the simple fact that it gives you that variety. You can quite literally jump between those, learn different styles, practice, play, learn, grow. It's a platform, because guess what? At the end of the day, aesthetic principles don't apply to a camera. There is not an aesthetic principle that locks to the Alexa. There are certain attributes of that camera that are important. There are attributes of a Red. There are attributes of the GH5, the noise, the grain, the standard, the Cine D. Fighting all of those are all part of the aesthetic package. So the point is to encourage you to consider what aesthetics you like, what your story dictates, what's best for your story. And it doesn't mean that there is one or the other. It may be that you want it to feel a certain way with 60. It may be that you want it to feel a certain way with 30 or 24. Or shooting everything slow-mo. I mean, that again is an aesthetic value. It's adding something to the narrative. So I'd encourage you to take the camera, take the GH5, take whatever, your cell phone. Your cell phone has an aesthetic value that you can use to create an element. Just take whatever it is, whatever camera you're using, and just consider it as a tool for exploring aesthetic value, and then jump in and look at variations on it. So I know this is a short episode. We're in the middle of post, finally coming out. We're seeing the light on the other side. Insanely crazy post process. I can't wait to talk about. That'll be soon enough. Don't forget to check out our live show tomorrow, Tuesday. That's Tuesdays. At 2 p.m. we'll be live, and we're going to be talking about aesthetic value with more examples, more detail. But again, just jump in, get to the camera, explore your stories, have fun. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and then tell everybody you know, what you want. Tell the community what you want. Come join us Tuesday, 2, whatever. Okay, Goldberg, I'm out.